The views and opinions expressed in the following podcast do not necessarily reflect those of the producers, the affiliates, or digital platforms hosting this podcast. All content is for the purposes of education, conjecture, and at times entertainment. We promote inclusiveness and diversity. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to Into the Deep with Jay Costa.
Welcome to Into the Deep. I'm Jay Costa. I am so ecstatic about today's guest. He's an inner peace coach who helps people resolve their source of anxiety and overcoming their childhood traumas through his powerful inner peace process. Today's guest is Charles Clay. Charles implements self-healing techniques to release lifelong childhood wounds, to promote healing for present and future generations. We talk about self-awareness and the impact that our actions have on children. When we know better, we do better. Take a moment, share it, like it, subscribe, and without further ado, join me as we seek light and journey into the deep with Charles Clay. Enjoy. Charles, thank you so much for joining me, brother. I can't thank you enough.
It's an honor to be here.
Oh man, I'm glad we were able to make this work out. If you wouldn't mind sharing who you are and what it is you do for our viewers and our listeners.
Yeah, I'm an inner peace coach. So I help people resolving the source of anxiety, overwhelm, childhood trauma, and we do that with a very powerful inner peace process. And it's one of the most effective self-healing tools I've discovered for releasing generational wounds. And this type of healing work is profound for not only ourselves, but future and past generations. So, I have two daughters. So this is the most inspiring medicine for me to keep taking too. When I experience triggers, to go to the source of it, resolve and heal those wounds so that my children don't have to have those same negative programs moving forward.
Love that. It's something that I feel like we're probably in the same generation here, and I'm 44 and
Same.
I feel right on. So I feel like, our parents, that generation before us, life was a little bit different for them. And so our generation, it's like when you know better, you do better. And we saw behaviors that we possibly wanted to correct, and we wanted to break the cycle. And I feel like that's why generationally now we're seeing so much more people talking about, finding that peace and working through things. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel the same way that, I have zero blame towards my parents. I feel like, they did a great job knowing what they knew and, operating with what they had to operate with, and so I'm very, I live in gratitude for that. And, the time I got to spend with them while they were here and get to share everything on my heart with them before they passed. And, so, we get to do it different. Like you said, now we just know that there's a better way, and we know how much our children are programmed by our actions, by our words. So it's like another level of self-awareness that comes into play, knowing that, we're programming these beautiful little beings, and downloading their software up here with everything that we do. So, it's inspiring to get to show up in a good way.
Oh, I love that. My condolences, sincerely. I lost my mom 2 years ago, and it's still been, the most challenging thing for me, to work through that as well, and my dad's taken it pretty tough. So, and my brother, but, so I got to ask you, what got you on this trajectory? What got you here?
Yeah, if we go way back, it started with the classic abandonment wound. My mom, my dad married, had an awesome house out in Tiger Mountain, Washington,
Mm.
and life was good. And then they had some consistent conflicts and ended up getting divorced. And I remember being 4 years old, and my mom knelt down in her leather coat, and I even remember the color of lipstick she was wearing, and shared with me that she was leaving and they're getting a divorce. She didn't know when she'd be back again. And so that for a 4-year-old was pretty tough to process. I'm sure a lot of people can relate. And, I took it as like, back then it was like I felt it was my responsibility to keep mom and dad together. It was like this heroic, superhero, challenge, but, that wasn't meant to be. And so luckily months later, she met a new boyfriend and moved in with him in a little town not too far called Preston. And so we got to go see mom again. And that was some of the most vivid, incredible memories of my life. That little town, I walked across the street first day and saw a kid petting his dog and asked him what his dog's name was and started chatting it up with him. And we became best friends still to this day. And, we started our own little biker gang back then, BMX bikes. So you could make the biggest jumps, and we were called the Scorpions. We had a tree fort and all this stuff. So it's just these like really vivid, cherished memories, that I had, and with tons of imagination. And then, when I was 10, my my dad picked us up from baseball practice, and he pulled the car over, and it's just my brother and I was looking at my brother like, man, something's wrong. And he shared with us that mom had died. And man, I just remember that being like the worst blow to the gut. It just felt like somebody kept hitting me in the stomach with a baseball bat over and over again. And it was just so painful to to lose her again, but in physical form this time. And so I remember sitting next to my brother at her funeral, trying my hardest not to cry because of hanging out with these older kids, picking up the beliefs that, men have to be strong, can't show weakness, and crying's for girls, all this silly nonsense that we pick up. And so that processing that took me a long number of years to really find those tears. And I went into a space of really just kind of numbing out. Like I didn't like being a loose cannon and a short fuse and overreacting to things. So I just literally like turned the switch. I was like, nope, I control my emotions and nothing rattles my cage. And, in middle school and stuff, that served me pretty well. But over time, I ended up having so much pain in my body, like the same recurring injuries. I just go to work out and end up, experiencing tightness and aches, pains, and injuries. So, of course, I was so science minded then that I was going to chiropractors and, acupuncture and massage therapists, physical therapists, but nothing was really getting to the source of the pain until it's usually the last place we look, right? Until I dove into the emotional aspect. And so fast forward, I graduated from Washington State University with my degree in kinesiology, and then shortly after moved to California and lived in San Diego for a good 15 years and lived the beach life. I was a personal trainer and, improving lives through fitness and health coaching. But I was taking on like 10 clients a day, running on coffee and, going out on the weekends and just avoiding those heavy feelings with numbing strategies, drinking, smoking cannabis back then and just going out partying. And so eventually that caught up to me. Usually the universe gives you a little feather, first, say, hey, you're a little out of alignment here. You might want to make an adjustment. And didn't listen to that. And then it's like getting hit in the head with a brick, I got that message, but wasn't able to like fully change my trajectory, kind of fell back into old patterns. So I found myself in Mammoth Mountain back in 2008. And I was up there with two buddies. And on this specific day it was a full-on blizzard. There was snow coming every which way. It was like a whiteout. You could barely see a tree 10 feet in front of you. And we'd gotten to the top and they'd shut down the chairlift because it was so dangerous. And we're looking around. We're the only ones up there. We're like, well, it's only one way down. Let's charge and stay low, be ready for anything. So we're like surfing through these, it feels like clouds, and just having a blast until about halfway down. I went off a jump that I didn't know was there. And I found myself in midair freaking out because it felt like I just went off a cliff. And I tensed up. As soon as I hit, it was like the impact hit my low back and it felt like I just got hit by a lightning bolt. I mean, it was the most excruciating physical pain I'd experienced. And I remember yelling to my friends, hoping they could help me, but they were already in front of me and way ahead. And I look at my phone. My phone's dead. And here I am in the middle of a blizzard at like a level 11 on a 10 scale of pain. And I knew I was in big trouble. And, it's in those moments that we like find another gear and really turn it on. I just channeled my inner Spartan warrior, was able to click my board off and just sit on it. And because I couldn't stand up, so just slide as far as I could and kind of keel over and breathe into the pain for a while. And eventually I made it down the mountain. And then I had to go see all these doctors because I could barely walk. And they're showing me MRIs and x-rays and all the bad news. And they were saying the same thing. They told me that I would need surgery ASAP or I might never move the same again. And for someone that appreciates these sensory suits so much, I just knew even in a fight or flight state that wasn't my path. And so I opted out of that and chose the self-healing path. And that meant sitting in my apartment in San Diego, I could barely even crawl to the bathroom. I was in so much pain. And I really finally had to surrender to all these feelings that I was avoiding for so long, the grief layers from losing my mom, the fear if I would ever move the same again, the shame of not even being able to stand up, let alone do anything productive and, meaningful. And so I sat there in a pool of my own tears and actually found gold there. It was like, man, why have I been hiding from this? There's actually a pot of self-discovery here at the depths of these emotions. And with that comes a lot of clarity. And so I remember setting the intention to drop into a meditation and receive all answers to healing naturally. And during that meditation, a friend I hadn't talked to in over 2 years, just not randomly, but sent me a text and said, hey, I heard your back's in bad shape. Check out NKT, neurokinetic therapy, the work of David Weinstock. And so that took me on this epic rabbit hole to learning the work of David's NKT, neurokinetic therapy. It is so cool to be able to get answers from the body through muscle testing and, correct these compensation patterns. And so I knew that was my path. I went and I got in touch with him and he's in the Bay. So he set me up with his top student in San Diego, got to do a session with her. And I walked in looking like Shakira stuck in a mid hip dance move. Like my hips were over to the left,
Oh, man.
body over to the right. And of course my body was representing how out of alignment I was with my purpose at that time. Right. And so she got me on the table. What happened next blew my mind and, opened my heart. She started testing muscle groups and found that my glutes weren't firing. She had me just push down with my foot and there was no activation there. I was like, man, that's weird. I have huge glutes. What do you mean they're not firing? She's like, yep, all form, no function. And she had me clench my jaw and then retested the glutes and all of a sudden they're back online temporarily. It's like, wow. So my body had just showed us that the neural traffic jam was in the jaw, right? Later to find out we often carry a lot of anger, resentment, even revenge energy can be, stuck there. And that became the neurological traffic jam. So I wasn't getting a signal to the big guns, these muscle groups to help stabilize my hips and my spine. So once we figured that out, she's putting these rubber gloves on. She's like, I know we just met, but I'm going to have to go in your mouth. I said, what? And she's massaging my jaw oh man, it ached so bad. But even in just a couple minutes of releasing there, it was like all these pathways started coming online again, and my glutes are firing again. We did that for a couple other compensation patterns, and I got off the table and was standing up straight. And I wanted to dance. I gave her a big hug and I said, I'm going to come see you every week. I'm going to learn this. I took all of David Weinstock's courses and studied with him and got certified and became a neurokinetic pain relief specialist. And that changed the whole trajectory of my path.
Wow. Incredible. It's wild to think, we aren't educated enough in our culture to realize the interconnectedness of the body. And, we're talking about ancient systems that have been around for thousands of years that we don't talk about or discuss in our culture. And yet here we are with this like renaissance of learning and studying from the inside out. And it's exactly what you're talking about right here.
Yeah, we're taught in our society early on to avoid pain by all means necessary, seek externally for pills or numbing agents, alcohol, liquid anesthesia, whatever your thing is, that we've been conditioned. And I've found that pain is such a powerful teacher. It's like our body's check engine light and it's trying to help us prevent us from a major breakdown. And so when we pay attention, I see pain as pay attention inward now. And it's just a great reminder to go inward and to seek to understand, pain is energy and energy is information. So my body's sharing some important information to help me realign with my path and come back into, full functional health and vitality. And that's what's so cool about learning NKT early on, was that not only did I get to opt out of having surgery, but I've helped a ton of other people have another alternative to going under the knife or, seeking medication, and pills and stuff with all these side effects, and actually get to the source. And so I started seeing a lot of the same common denominators. And I help a lot of people with low back pain. They would fly out all the way from Australia to come get sessions, and were blown away by, feeling stronger and decreasing the risk of injury and feeling like a new man. And so it's just fascinating. What I've learned from that was pointing to another couple layers that usually go unaddressed when it comes to pain. And that's the metaphysics, which is fascinating to me. It's like what's going on in our life, right? And our thoughts and our feelings that are actually affecting, our body and our chemistry. And so when you understand that, there's a lot of lessons and blessings to gain from the metaphysics as to why this is happening for us instead of to us. And that getting out of that victim mode and into an empowering state of, self inquiry and curiosity, there's some beautiful answers that can arrive. And the second piece is the emotional component. I'm a great example of, I tried everything to massage out pain, to release all the physical things, but nothing really worked until I actually felt through those emotions and allowed that energy to finally metabolize in my system, freeing up so much energy, and allowing more pain-free living. And so I've seen pain as a very powerful teacher, and my path has been from one to pain to purpose. And now I pay attention to the feathers and I get to help others, but do it in an easier way. I feel like I took the hard course, the hard path, and now I get to teach an easier way. And so we address the metaphysics, the emotional components, the physiology, as well as the inner peace process, which is incredible for just step by step going into where some of these limiting beliefs and old generational wounds were beginning in our lives from the first place, right? And this is fascinating because it's such a cool exploration of self-discovery. And we get to reparent ourselves through this experience to bring love, support, and safety to the younger parts of us that were going through an event. Like for me, losing my mom, getting to reconnect with that 10-year-old of myself. And actually, instead of him feeling like he was going through that alone, I get to join him as my current self and support him through that, and essentially rescue him from that experience that he was stuck in, and that's important because, whether it's the 4-year-old, the 7-year-old, these parts of us that feel stuck in past experiences and traumas, once we integrate that and bring them back online, it's like, hallelujah. Now you have the imagination, right? That we sometimes lose along the path when we start paying bills and call ourselves grown-ups, and kind of lose that magic. Whereas when you integrate these parts, that magic comes back online. Our imagination, even Einstein knew imagination is more important than knowledge, because it's where everything comes from, and then we get to bring it into physical form. So it's been truly a gift to get to share this medicine, and much different than most other practitioners that I've seen. It's not like, come see me, twice a week for the next 3 years. I've had clients share that they've done therapy, talk therapy for like 3 years, and then did 8 weeks of this inner peace coaching with me, and found that they had more breakthroughs, more self-discovery, incredible results, and more dreams coming true in such a short amount of time than they had in 3 years of therapy, because it's actually allowing your body to finally metabolize the somatic energy that's been stuck as issues in our tissues, and also get to identify, wow, these limiting beliefs that we all share often around, like, I'm not good enough, or I'm unlovable, like I'll never be good enough. These beliefs are actually decisions that we made about ourselves. And when you kind of identify where that decision was made, and then we can begin to pull those like weeds, those limiting beliefs, and plant some deeper truths. And we get to do that through this process with also calling in a future, wiser, sage version of ourselves, our higher self, that we can gain guidance from as our current self. And it's a beautiful process. And once people get the experiential learning, then I give them the step-by-step take-home version of it. And now you're armed with a process for healing, from the source, where all these triggers and uncomfortable feelings and challenges that arise and conflicts, when those come up, usually it's like, man, whether it's anger, somebody pissed me off and we're pointing the finger, this person's fault. There's always these fingers pointing back to the source of that. And those triggers are actually gateways to deeper healing. And so when there's a charge there, there's something worth looking at. And usually we've been taught, to numb it out, or go on Netflix and just escape, or go on a scroll hole on Instagram and just, get away from it. Whereas now we're armed with a process. We can literally like pick up our journal or leave a voice note and go through this step by step and resolve it from the source, and learn more about ourselves, and, talk about knowing thyself. It's beautiful. And literally then everybody benefits that you encounter, literally from strangers to your loved ones, because in that same example of anger, as well as I do, it's like, even if we're trying to bottle it down, it's like a volcano, and eventually it starts trickling over, and guess who gets the brunt of it? It's usually our loved ones. We end up being short with them. We're snappy, we're less patient, less present, and sometimes outbursts, say things we don't mean. And so I help a lot of people with developing a healthy relationship with anger, with grief, with finding the gold in the depths of these emotions. And it's beautiful because the entire family benefits. It's really cool, because this work is clearing generational wounds. The abandonment wound I had to heal personally in order to call in my queen, right? And allow for all these dreams to come true with my children. And before that, I had a pattern of, like my first love in college, she, blew my mind. We had so much fun together. It was like, oh, we could spend our lives together, right? Well, after a year, she ended up leaving me. And I was heartbroken, but I moved on. I didn't have these tools back then. Picked up the pieces, moved on, and then years later fell in love again. And it was when, after about 8 months, my girlfriend left me and I started connecting the dots. I was like, whoa, I'm the common denominator here. Like, and it really put my ego aside and looked at all the ways that I was actually showing up very immaturely in aspects of the relationship to push them away and to recreate the story that my ego is familiar with of love and loss, of like, oh, you know, the woman I love the most will always leave me, right? Because that's the story that I created when I was 4. And so that would just keep reoccurring unless I had a way of going to the source and resolving that. So it's been such a gift to get to utilize and to share this inner peace process. It's been a game changer for healing trauma.
Thank you so much for sharing. It's a beautiful thing, you know, the internal dialogue and the thoughts that we have and the mental blocks that we put up without even realizing it until we come to that, like you said, that hallelujah moment, that, you know, revelation of realizing that it's us. We're the common denominator in all of these scenarios in our life. You know, to know thyself is the most important lesson in all of this. And not everyone gets to experience that. Not everyone goes about it in the way you did or other people have done to be able to do the work. And now, you know, you're shining a light for others so that they can find their true self.
Yeah. And we're all just reminding each other what's possible. You know, it's like there's even medicine in jealousy and envy. You know, it's like the competitive nature kicks in. They're like, well, why don't I have that yet? Or all the cool things, the whatever's, right? And then, and whereas if you zoom out and see it from, you know, the seat of awareness, it's like, oh, how amazing. This person's reminding me of what's possible. And if you spot it, then you got it. It means like you're riding that same wave of possibility and that you can call that into your life too. So it's just been an exciting reframe on total different outlook on life, getting to use these self-healing tools. And, you know, it's a game changer for people that have given up on their dreams. You know, they're just like, man, life's just too tough. Like, that's just a pipe dream. You know, they don't even put much clout into that anymore. And then they find a way to invest in themselves and get the support that they deserve and learn this inner peace process and start recognizing, wow, no wonder I gave up on that, because here's this limiting belief that I'm always a failure, that, you know, I'm never good enough. And so as soon as we start picking those, boom, opportunities, people show up, like all the puzzle pieces for that experience to happen. It's like the universe wants to experience your dreams too, through you. You know, so it allows for that when we clear the 3D debris that's been in the way internally. And that's one of the things I love about this work, is I get to witness a lot of dreams come true, whether it's calling in your soulmate. You know, a lot of realtors that I work with have just been on that feast or famine roller coaster ride financially, and they get to get off of that because they're improving their relationship with money and realizing where their internal blocks were to that. And, you know, some of them have gotten the youngest realtor in her region to get all these amazing accolades after doing this work, and top in sales and all these things. So, and then health, of course, you know, that people like have just dropped weight. Like their body's just like, oh, I don't need to hold this layer of protection anymore. I'm safe here in this world. I just had to remind my 7-year-old that, you know, and let them know that and feel through those emotions. And it's truly remarkable. And it's really exciting what's possible.
It's interesting because being on the other side of the obstacles, right? Being on the other side of the proverbial hump, right? It's easier. You know, they say, you know, we can look back with 20/20 vision. Everything's fine. We can connect the dots, right? I can always look back and connect the dots. So what advice do you give individuals that are feeling stuck. They're feeling really weighed down. They're not sure that they're able to even, attain these goals. Maybe people in, midlife, and they're looking back and they're seeing these 20 somethings and these 30 somethings just living their dreams. And they're like, I was once young. And then there's that jealousy thing. And so what advice do you give these individuals that are at the beginning of their journey?
Yeah, it's a great question. And one, when we're up against these challenges, remembering that challenges are opportunities for growth, right? And there's so much gold on the other side of them if we choose to move through it. And so I always offer 3 self-inquiry questions. And these are profound because the sooner we can get out of any victim mode, which is like, why is this happening to me? And it like comes in threes, right? It's like a storm of like the worst 3 things happen at the same time. And you're just like, oh, this is devastating. When we're in that victim mode, that just prolongs the experience of suffering, like much longer than needed. So these self-inquiry questions can help get out of that and into using our mind as a beautiful instrument of the heart to like a heat-seeking missile to seeking answers. And this is beautiful because if we're not using this, then the mind will just go back to its default negative programs of like, I'm in big trouble. This is going to get worse, or like the self-diagnosis on Google, right? And then it's like, oh no, I have heartworms or whatever the worst thing is, right? Like, and that just makes it even worse and amplifies the anxiety and the fight or flight. And then we're making more decisions from fight or flight state. So I offer one of the greatest tools that's right under our nose. It's breath. There's a really powerful expansion breath technique I teach that allows you to calm your nervous system, right? And to kind of come from upstairs in Problemville, where mind's always looking for problems to solve or threats, and drop it into the heart space, which is, just this safe place to navigate and connect with everyone and everything, and including your higher self and guidance and wisdom. And when you use that breath and calm your nervous system, then these 3 questions can be really powerful. And the first one is, how is this happening for me? And so no matter how bad the challenge is, no matter how devastating, if you can get out of that victim mode and ask, how's this happening for me? Because I know on the other end of this, they have a whole track record of, past challenges that you've made it through and gained some gold from, that this one is, how would this be different? So it's allowing your mind to go, instead of those negative default programs, towards seeking answers. And then the second one is, what needs to change? And this is that self-accountability, because oftentimes your body will give you an answer of like, oh, I need to cut out gluten, or, I need to stop drinking, or whatever your thing is, might be related to addictions, vices, things where relationships aren't in harmony or in peace, right? So it's truth. It'll have you take a look at that. And then you can make a commitment and an agreement to make some shifts. And then when you make the right shifts, your body's like, thank you. We're going to reward you with tons of energy and back to vitality and health again, and then you're on the right track. Third one is, what are the lessons to learn from this? And what are the blessings to earn from this experience? And those self-inquiry questions, even if the answers don't come instantaneously, just by putting your reticular activation system on your mind, setting it to seeking those answers, they'll start popping up in your experience, and you'll get, it's an opportunity to improve that connection to your intuition as well. And every time you listen to your intuition, say yes to that and honor that and take that action step, whether it's cutting out alcohol or gluten or whatever in that example, you are improving your connection to your higher self, to a higher power, to, they say, when we're praying, we're talking to God. And when you're listening to your intuition, that's God talking to you. So it's a beautiful way to honor that and make those necessary changes. And then you can move through the challenges with a little more ease and grace, because when we gain those golden nuggets, I call them the lessons and the blessings, then usually it doesn't have to keep reoccurring in your life. Like my example with the broken heart, the women leaving me in my life. you know, all my dreams came true after that because I had done that inner work to resolve the own beliefs that I created about myself and those decisions I made at an earlier state. So it's profound. It excites me just to even think about, you know, the results that people get from this work, and it's like a new lease on life. You know, when you see challenges as growth opportunities, and you're like, yeah, the fear doesn't go away, the self-doubt, the perfectionism, like none of that like goes away. You're still human, and you have your ego, this tour guide trying to keep you safe by taking you back to what's familiar, right, in survival mode. But your soul knows better. Your soul's here for novelty, for full expansion, for the full learning in this human experience. And so knowing that, you can befriend the ego. And I have a whole process for people that's like, get to name that voice and get to know those roommates in your head and actually integrate them instead of trying to exile them, because we all know that doesn't work. They just come back louder and taking the wheel and, you know, detouring us to decisions that aren't in our highest. And so that combined with a visioneering practice that I offer, it's super fun. It's like I don't even call it homework. It's an exercise that allows you to connect and experience just with a crystal clear palette of your, what do you want? Like, what does the ideal life look like for you? And give yourself an opportunity to write that out in present tense and get to experience that in real time, the sensations, the emotions, and all the details. And then that becomes your North Star. And so that can help people align with their purpose, just because if it's a heart's desire, then there's a reason that's here for you, you know, and you deserve it. So if you're taking inspired action steps towards that each day, boy, it can get really exciting. You'll see as all those signs and synchronicities show up and the puzzle pieces start falling into place to allow you that vision to come to fruition. And it's fun.
Oh man. I love that too. Now, in your opinion, for individuals, maybe there's, you know, parents out there, maybe single parents out there, and they've got visions and hopes and dreams, and they almost feel guilty to follow them because they're putting their children first. You know, they're putting maybe their partner, maybe they're married, and they're putting everyone else first, and they're putting themselves last, but they're not fulfilling their own visions, and they're not fulfilling their goals or hopes and dreams. What advice would you give those individuals?
Great question. I too am a recovering people pleaser, so I can relate. And here's what's cool. Like we mentioned earlier, we're always modeling our actions, our relationships with everything, with money, with each other, with those are, it's like our children are just digesting that and are downloading that software in their brain. So would you like to be known by your children as the one that never had the courage to pursue their dreams and just gave up on that path, trying to fill everybody else's cup from an empty cup? Or would you like to be known and allow your children to witness you boldly dancing through fear and seeing what's on the other side, and seeing how many of these dreams you can make come true in one life and leave behind a legacy that can inspire your children to do the same, right? It's like you're literally, by you doing that, you're giving them a full permission slip to also pursue their dreams and know that they deserve that. So that's a game changer. It's a great question.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love the way you framed that and articulated that. It's that permission slip. It's saying, hey, you can do it too, because you're so right. You know, they mimic their parents. You know, they're gonna see things, they're gonna hear things, and that becomes their cycle. It becomes that program, like you said earlier. And I feel like, you know, I'm glad, you know, a lot of my friends, even my brother, you know, like seeing how, you know, my friends and family talk to their children nowadays, you know, whereas like I said, you know, generationally, like our parents and, you know, our grandparents, it was a different time. And for me, I'm first generation in this country. So my father coming here when he was a child, it was a different mindset, coming to this new country. It's foreign. It was just this work hard mentality. And it was just like, and again, no shame. I love the foundation that they've created, but again, being here, knowing better and doing better. That's the thing that's evident, especially for me in my experience. And, it sounds like, even if you're not first generation here, there's a lot of people who are experiencing those things just the same.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's some profound changes, upon us, in this human experience. And so it's good to take a look at your relationship with change. There's those that try to resist it, and boy, that's painful. I've
Right.
been there.
Right.
And, it's like holding on for dear life, just hoping this doesn't change or you don't lose this in your life. And there's acceptance, right, of change, accepting, hey, yep, this is everything in this realm changes. And then there's the ability as creators, we have the power to initiate change as well. And so you can choose from those three. What I find beautiful is that, I take my girls on a walk almost every day to the nature trails here. And, it's been super dry all summer here in Texas. And, we sit and I taught her how I pray with tobacco, right? It's this beautiful carrier for prayers. And so we would go down to the water where there used to be water and it was all dried up, and we would pray for, rain and for water coming to fill all the lakes, the rivers, and the streams to allow for all of life to thrive here. And it's just been so beautiful because the other day, we've gotten some serious rain here, and I got to take Sophia down to that water again, and now it's filled with water. And I was like, how cool is that? Our prayers were answered, and water is a great representation of current, of currency, right? Life flows through it. So it's just beautiful to get to share that with her, and imagine her first experience and relationship with tobacco is much different than our generation, right?
Right.
Witnessing like the abuse and the overuse of it and the addictions and such. So that really warmed my heart the other day. And you look in nature, that's another thing. If you're going through a challenge, get in nature, go by the nearest water, because nature's always displaying the answers for us. Those that are resistant to change and choose that painful path. If you watch a tree that has these elegant leaves, right, that all season it's been growing these incredible leaves, but when winter comes or fall, it's just doesn't hold on, doesn't try to like, oh no, not that one. I love that one. It's just with the wind, lets the leaves fall. And it's beautiful because the tree knows it can grow deeper roots and taller branches and even more beautiful leaves next season, But we as humans, man, we just have so much more trouble with that. That's like, not that leaf, not that friend, not that, And so just being so close with death in this life of so many loved ones, that I have really just found a lot of gold in grief and been able to connect in a new way to those souls. And it's just been beautiful. So I encourage everyone to, get into nature, experience the answers that nature always is displaying for us. It's like the same thing program that I grew up with. You got to do, work really hard. And it's like, well, these trees are out here producing apples, but not, all in divine timing. And it's all happening without all this like needing to do or speedy. It's all just like naturally in time, in divine timing, and it all gets done. Right. And what else is cool is like those apples, unlike us on Instagram and social media, it's like the tree could care less if you think the apples are sour or the sweetest thing since apple pie. right? I'm just here to produce apples. I'm just doing my purpose. And whereas we get so caught up into, like, oh, they didn't like that comment or that video, or, it's like, you're an epic creator. Just create, and the more we create, the more we're on that path of purpose. And it balances out the conditioning that we've had to overconsume. And I feel like that's such an accelerator. It's like gasoline on the fire of anxiety, depression. All those emotions are a byproduct of just getting further and further away from your path of purpose. And as a creator, it's like we just consume, and we're forgetting that, oh yeah, I have the ability to create, even if it's playing the guitar or writing a short story or, creating a cool experience for your family or your friends, so the more you align with that, the more you feel the long-term fulfillment. It's so much richer than any short-term gratification you're going to get from consuming something outside of you for a temporary relief. And that's been a game changer for me. That's what inspired me, sitting with the anxiety, especially right around the pandemic time. I really allowed myself to take anxiety through the inner peace process and discovered so much gold there. Like, I couldn't believe it. Felt like I'd been avoiding this. Anxiety is usually not trusting in the process of life, fear, and avoidance. So I was not trusting in the process of life at that time, caught myself getting into some traps of data that might not even be true. And so as soon as I really sat with that, it was like an old friend had been knocking at my door for a long time, anxiety. And finally, instead of trying to avoid it, I invited him in for tea. It was like sitting down to have anxiety. and it was like a dear friend that had been trying to help me this whole time. And it was so uncomfortable that I didn't answer the door until then. And what I discovered is that, of course, anxiety has this charge to the word based on our past experiences. So it can feel very, constrictive in nature, nails on a chalkboard, just that word alone from our past experiences of it. Whereas if we call it what it is, it's just energy. And it's usually a lot of energy in one general location or two in our bodies. And energy is information. So when I finally unpacked this, it was like, wow, my friend was showing me my biggest fear right smack in my face. And it was like, I have not wanted to look at this. And that fear, being so close to death of my loved ones, was deathbed regrets. Just I know sometime my time will be up here, and you get, I've interviewed a lot of people that have had near-death experiences, experimented with, sat with some really profound plant medicines. And so this allowed me to develop a relationship with death and life that allows me to really get the most and give the most out of each day. Because, man, when it comes my time, I don't want to look back and go, oh, I wish I would have shared that idea. Oh, I wish I would have created that thing that was so cool that I could have helped so many people with. Or I wish I would have had the courage to share that message on my heart that might have helped one person, right? I've gotten to look at that. And that was a fear that lit a catalyzing fire of motivation, of inspiration. It was like a healthy fear, to really spark more of my creativity. And so that's when I developed and enrolled a great group into the laser focus method. And it was a way of gamifying your get-to-do lists and actually, creating more intrinsic self-sourcing of dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, healthy rewards. So you don't need to seek that externally as much, and really just getting to dance through fear and create more. And instead of consuming so much, and it's such a game changer that now it's a online do-it-yourself program, and it's like such a cool experience. And people that have gone through the laser focus method that still use it today are creating like 10 times more than they were when they were caught in the consumption, conditioning. And so that's been such a gift, and really cool to alchemize. Like I probably wouldn't have created that had I not sat with the depths of anxiety, and now I don't have the same relationship with anxiety. Like I see it at, like, I'll catch it when it's a little feather. Oh, I see you, old friend. Thank you. You're right. I have been like consuming more than I was creating. It's time to get back to, what I'm here to do and be. And that's been such a game changer. Just one of the many gifts that, everybody can find in the depths of these heavy or so-called bad emotions and feelings. So I encourage, put on the lens of curiosity and go in and allow yourself to feel that and see what kind of gold lies there for you in your self-discovery path.
Oh, absolutely love that. And I love the alchemical allegories that are happening right there too. It's fascinating to think about that, and getting on the other side of pain and turning that into gold, and starting with ourselves, because that's all we have control over. And, I love that. And so you talk about these methods, you talk about the things that you've been doing and you have available. How can folks find it, and where can folks find you?
Yeah. Check out charlesclay.coach. That's where you'll find the laser focus method, more information about the inner peace process if you want to reach out about that. And there's a free gift for everybody there. And this is a fun one because it's I've been using this for my good morning ritual for over a decade. And it's an alignment activation that allows you to reclaim and come into full sovereign chi, I call it. And that's just filling up with your own life force energy, returning to center anything that's not yours, letting the 3D debris drop. So it's a breathwork, movement, and visualization practice that's a game changer. And it's really fun to get to create from that place. So I highly recommend everybody get that, experience it, use it. It's a fun one. When it feels good, it's working. And so just subscribe at the bottom, charlesclay.coach. You'll get your free gift automatically, that guided alignment activation. And then for those on Instagram, charlesclay.coach, you can find me there too. And feel free to shoot a DM. I'm happy to connect. I love, getting to help anywhere that I can. And we have such a plethora of resources. So feel free to shoot a DM if the inner peace process interests you or the laser focus method, and love to connect. And while there's space available for the listeners, I can offer a 15-minute support call as well. And on that call, it's great. You can schedule it at whatever time works, and we'll hop on, get to hold space for you and see exactly where you're at, what you're up against, and where you'd like to go, and create some of those puzzle pieces in place for you, and see if there's any way I can support you. So that's a couple offerings and free gifts just for the listeners. I appreciate everybody tuning in. This is such a gift to get to share these lessons and blessings that I kind of learned the hard way to offer an easier way. And if there's one thing I could hope to inspire in others that I wish I would have had the courage to act on earlier, reach out for support. Like, tune in with your intuition to those people that you feel called to intuitively, that just send them a message, reach out to them. We're not meant to do this alone. It's like such an easier path and more meaningful when you're going through something and you just know that you're not alone, and you can rely on other people, mentors, guides, friends, whoever you feel called to. And I feel like that's a big one, especially for everybody dealing with anxiety and depression and the suicide rate these days. Like, just have the courage to reach out for support when you need it, and to whoever you feel intuitively called to. And we'd be glad you did.
And there you have it. I cannot thank Charles enough for all his time, his space, and his energy. I really enjoyed that conversation. My heart goes out to him. I can align with him on our loss of loved ones and where it puts us in life. And honestly, I implore each and every one of you to check out charlesclay.coach and check out those offerings of the free gifts. You can get that laser focus method, the inner peace process, that 15-minute support call, and that free gift, the guided alignment activation. Find Charles on Instagram at charlesclay.coach. Check him out, follow him. He shares a lot of pictures with his family, and it's absolutely adorable. Thank you, Charles, for all that you do. And I can't express how important it is for mental health, for all of us to reach out for support. You are not alone. None of us are alone. The holidays are very difficult, and I can totally align with that. Hit us up, please. Reach out to us. Reach out to somebody, anybody. If you don't have family or friends that you can reach out to, or you don't feel comfortable, reach out to us. It's confidential. We'll get you the support you need. You know, it's so easy to talk about Thanksgiving, and yes, we employ the attitude of gratitude, but Thanksgiving is challenging for a lot of us. And for me, I can tell you, it's very challenging for me because I have so many memories of hanging out with my mom and Thanksgiving dinner and making dinner together in the last years of her life that I'll never forget, and I cherish them sincerely. And it's important for me to share this. As hard as it is for me to share, it's important because I know there are people out there who can share in that sentiment. And I also know that there are people out there who didn't have great relationships with their parents. Reach out. There is strength in asking for help, and there is strength in asking for support. Until next time, please take care of one another and keep thinking for yourself.